Hi, how are you? Excuse me. So, I was in the middle of watching Lionheart while also watching a Drum Dum's live stream, his weekly live stream. And he asked a question to the people in the chat. What was your first horror theater experiences? And it got me thinking about my firsts in horror, period. So I thought I'd kind of just tell my story. So, it's no big surprise, I think I mentioned this before. The first horror movie I ever saw was back when I was 7 years old, maybe younger, and that was Child's Play. Yes, sir. And my grandma used to let me watch this all the time. And I was fine with this. It wasn't until Bride of Chucky came out in 98 that the new look of Chucky, now keep in mind I was 11 years old at this time, by the time that Bride of Chucky came along. The new look of Chucky, the scars and everything, freaked me the fuck out, to the point that they were having a marathon, right, of Chucky movies on USA. And I watched the beginning of Child's Play 3, and it got to the part where he's killing Mr. Shove It Up Your Ass with the toys and stuff, and nothing like a strangulation to get the circulation going. And I was kind of freaked out a little bit, so I turned it to something I thought would be a better change in pace and not as creepy, and that was WCW Monday Nitro on TNT. But can you guess what night this was? What night? What episode of Nitro this was? Can you guess? Of all the nights, what night was this? If you guessed the night where Chucky appeared on the screen and called out Rick Steiner, you would be correct. It was like, I couldn't escape the guy. And I had this fear of letting my feet, like my grandma used to have, she had a couple chairs in the living room and a little ottoman in the middle of it. People sit on and stuff. I used to be so afraid, and on beds too, to let my feet dangle that I would sit crossed on chairs and beds and stuff, just because I didn't want Chucky to grab my foot from underneath. I don't know why. At 11 years old, I was so fucking freaked out by it. My grandma was blaming Goosebumps, because that same day, I watched The Night in Terror Tower, which is a creepy episode, but she blamed that for creeping me out. Goosebumps never really scared me. Not really. Night in Terror Tower is a little bit creepy, but not really. It was Chucky. But she would never believe that because I was never, she never thought I was afraid of Chucky. And then, one night, on a Saturday night, I was upstairs playing with my toys when my mom called me downstairs. And it was because they had Chucky, or a facsimile thereof, on the show. It's not the real Chucky. It didn't sound like him, it didn't look like him. But I just saw him and ran back upstairs. Because I was so afraid at the time, and I don't understand why. But Chucky was my first horror movie I ever saw. The first horror movie I ever saw on my own, it's actually between two different ones because I'm not sure which one I saw first. On my own, by myself. And this is actually after the next one that I'm going to talk about after this. But this is the first one I saw by myself. And it's either The Kiss from 1988 or The Gate from 1987. And the reason I don't know is because at both those times, the cable guide on the cable box at my grandma's house in the bedroom I would stay in was messed up and just said to be announced. So I never knew the names of it until later when the internet came around and I actually looked it up. And the reason I don't remember which one I watched first because it was the same circumstances. Late at night, my grandma's asleep, I'm staying up. I'm a prepubescent boy. I want to watch some rated R horror movies, maybe sneak in some Skinamax. I was going through puberty, give me a break, Anyway, yeah, those movies, Kiss especially got me, because there's a nude scene with Joanna Becula, prepubescent, teenager, want to see the boobies, you know what I mean? The Gate, though, that freaked me the fuck out, because that movie is just it's so surreal that it gets to you. Even the scene where Terry's on the bed, and he's doing that. He's lip syncing basically to the words on the thing, and it's so loud, booming voice that you just kind of like, ooh. But yeah, that movie freaked me out. Now, the first horror movie that I could say I officially watched that really affected me and really got me into horror, and this is before these ones, was Scream. This was the movie, the first horror movie that I ever saw. This was the first horror movie that I watched. It really started to get me into horror. And I hear a lot of people say that, they say, oh, hey, horror wasn't cool until Scream came along. And yeah, but there are other people that grew up watching horror before Scream came. And then when Scream came along and horror became cool, it's like, oh, now you think horror is cool. But before Scream, it wasn't cool. I don't know. I like Child's Play before this. But this one really is the one that got me into horror. I wanted to watch more horror movies. I was like, ooh, this is kind of cool. I do remember, though, sitting there. This was like 97 when I watched this. And I was 11 years old. Right? 10 years old. Sorry. Watching this. My mom was there. And it gets to the scene where Sydney and Billy are in the bed getting ready to do it. And I'm thinking my mom's going to change the channel because it's a sex scene. And my mom always changed channels when there's sex scenes on TV. But she didn't. She did it, my folks weren't always... I used to sit there with my mom's first husband watching Bill and Ted and thinking the language in that movie would make him want to turn it off. But no, he sat there and watched it with me. One of the very few times we got along, actually. But anyway, I hated him. Still do. But for far worse reasons than when I hated him when I was younger. I just couldn't stand the guy. Anyway, moving away from that. Scream, right? We had that box back then. It was the cable box, whatever it was, the box, whatever it was called. We're watching Scream on Stars. And yeah, that scene comes along, and I remember as a kid when sex scenes came on TV, I would sit there and I would kind of look at my mom or my grandma, just kind of being nervous. There was a point when I was a little bit older and we were watching Big. And there's the scene where he pulls down the strap on her bra or whatever and feels her up, and I'm still sitting there going, even though I'd seen it a million times before, I think at that point, that's when it started to occur to me, hey, is this appropriate for a kid to watch? And most recently, though, I watched Big with my son a couple months ago. And I was watching him when this scene was happening, right? Not that, it's on TV, you're not going to show anything, and never show anything anyway, but I was waiting for him to ask a question about, what is this? What's going on? What are they doing? Why is he doing that to her bra? What? Nothing. He just sat there and watched it. He had no questions. And it was weird to me that he didn't ask, why are they doing that? What is that? Maybe he's smarter than I know. I don't know. But Scream, to me, is what really got me into horror. And, yeah, I've been trying to, I've been into horror ever since. It's one of my favorite, if not my favorite. Well, lately it's been between horror and action. I love action movies. Now, so I mentioned the first horror movie I ever saw. The first horror movie or movies I saw on my own. And the first movie that got me really into horror. Now, let's talk about the first horror movie I ever saw in a movie theater. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Yeah, it was the theatrical version. And when I first saw this, and keep in mind, when I first saw Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, I was not familiar with the entire Halloween franchise. I had seen Halloween 5 and H2O and parts of Resurrection. That's it. Because I remember one time, they had Halloween Resurrection on late night at ABC. ABC used to play movies late night on Saturdays. They would play episode of Smallville and then a movie afterwards, which was kind of weird. And one of the nights was Halloween Resurrection. And I think I actually watched the whole thing. So by this point, I had watched, because I had H2O on DVD. So I think by this point, I watched 5, H2O, and Resurrection. And I hadn't seen the first Rob Zombie Halloween. And so I went to see this. And I think the theatrical cut of Rob Zombie Halloween 2, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is a better cut. I don't think I've ever seen the theatrical cut of the first Rob Zombie Halloween, because the only version they had on DVD and stuff at that time was the unrated, the director's cut, because Rob Zombie needs to have his vision on the screen. But the theatrical cut, that was pretty good. The ending was what made it for me, is that in the theatrical cut ending, Laurie Strode didn't die, but she did die in the director's cut, and to me that ruins the film. Like, Laurie Strode is supposed to be your heroine, right? Now, yes, they wrote this Laurie Strode different than the other. Loomis supposedly dies, although if they made a third film, I'm sure he would have came back. And because that's the thing with Loomis, is he sort of dies sometimes. Like, he exploded in the second one, in the original Halloween 2. He supposedly had a heart attack in Halloween 5. That's when he falls on Michael. That's why he's not in the last act, last part of the film at the police department when the Man in Black shows up, is because originally Dr. Loomis was supposed to be dead. When he fell on Michael, that was a heart attack. He died, but it was never really official. But then they brought him back for Halloween 6. But I don't know. Which I like producer's cut better than the theatrical cut, but here the Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 theatrical cut I think was better. It's a shitty movie either way you look at it, but I think that I enjoyed the Halloween 2 theatrical cut, Rob Zombie's, better than I do the director's cut. And I remember my theater experience with this was that I was sitting in there. There was maybe a handful of people in there, if even. And, like, the only time you hear the Halloween theme is at the end. And I could say that kind of works. As you get that, after, what happens, you see, like, Love Hurt plays or whatever. And then you see, maybe it's not in the theatrical cut. I don't know. I haven't seen the theatrical cut in a while. But Laurie gets taken. They close in on Laurie in the asylum as it gets closer and closer. And it shows the whatever ghost or whatever, and she smiles. And right from that smile, then goes to dun 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 right afterwards, and it kind of freaked me out. It went from that dun 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 dun. And just that plays, and it freaked me out. I sort of ran out of the theater a little bit. I remember it freaking me out. I don't really have any other horror firsts or anything to talk about. I am planning on doing some horror lists, some countdowns and stuff. I got top 10 classic horror movies. I'm trying to do decade, but I know 80s, 90s, and 2000s, maybe 2010s I can do. But, like, before the 80s, I haven't seen a lot of the horror movies. So I think if I do a top 10, it'll be from anything before that. So I'm just going to call it top 10 classic horror movies. Like, from the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. Anything before the 80s. So, just keep in mind. And then I'm going to do a video on remakes. Not a count or anything, because I already did a top 10 on that. My top 10 favorite. I'm just going to do a video where I grab all the remakes that I have in my possession and talk about them. Even a couple that are on what's on my Vudu. One that I've seen, which I know people talk about all the time because it's shot for shot. You probably ought to figure out what it is. But yeah, this is just a little video I wanted to do. And I got to get back to Lionheart because I want to finish this movie so I can do the last one for the night. So, what are your guys' thoughts on my horror first? What are your horror first? What's the first horror movie you ever saw? What's the first horror movie you ever saw on your own? Is that the same as the first horror movie you ever saw? Let me know in the comments below. Also, what movie got you into horror? It doesn't have to be the first horror movie you ever saw that got you into horror. What movie actually got you into horror? If you are a horror fan, let me know in the comments below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I've been Scotty. I'll see you in the next one.